Alrighty. Oh, it's recording them. Alright. Why does this sound so weird? Oh, the microphone's... Son of a... How's that? Oh, there we go. Recording. Okay. Got everything figured out. It's very impromptu. Well, it's not impromptu. I didn't go over this a whole lot this podcast episode before I got into this. So let's start with the intro. Not like we really have one, but welcome to episode 6 of the MotoConvo, motocross and supercross based podcast. This is a mid-waist based podcast. Blah blah blah. Alright, seriously though, what I was saying was this is not impromptu in the way that I usually record on Mondays, but I didn't give this topic too much thought because I just kind of wanted to make it off the cuff, like spontaneous. So, I only wish I was sponsored by Sprite. Alright, so for episode 6 of the podcast, we're going to discuss my favorite motocross tracks. We'll do 2 episodes. 6 will be motocross, and we'll do another episode of supercross tracks. But this will be, like I said, my favorite motocross tracks. And I'm going to break it down into... we're going to do a favorite and my least favorite, which if you watched the last episode where we went over I think it was stop 3 and 4. 3 and 4 for the motocross season, 2018 Lucas Oil Pro Motocross season, then you know that out of the whole series, or even as far as I can remember back to when I started watching, Thunder Valley is my least favorite track. Not to throw any shade towards Colorado or the people that put it on or the track or anything like that. I'm sure they're all great. I personally love Colorado. When I was growing up, I went to Denver and saw the mountains when they were snow-capped, and it was awesome. I like Colorado. I haven't been there since, but I like Colorado, so nothing bad against Colorado, guys. There's just something about the Thunder Valley track. It never really interested me. It always got kind of dry, it seemed, and hard packed and rutted up, and it just never really was something that I was like, I don't know. It's not really my thing. So if that's my least favorite, then what's my favorite? So let's start with my favorite on the schedule. So the schedule looks like this. We've gone through 6 rounds now. Yes, Southwick was just this last weekend, which I need to watch, of course, because that's what I do. I get behind, and then I have to catch back up and rush it all. So, the schedule, going over every track from first to last, is Hangtown, Glen Helen, Thunder Valley, High Point, Tennessee, Southwick, Redbud, Spring Creek, aka Millville, Washougal, Unadilla, Budds Creek, and Ironman National in Crawfordsville, Indiana. So out of 12 rounds, we're halfway through the season, which is bad in my opinion because I love motocross. Someone text me. I will get back to them shortly. So we're halfway through the season, which also makes me feel like it's flying by. Being here in Iowa, the corn is already practically above my head, depending on where you're at, I guess. So we're like already inching towards harvest season, which means, it's the Midwest, so we get snow, and that means that riding gets put on hold unless there's no snow, which is never going to happen. Anyway, so favorite track for the schedule of this 2018 year. Alright, so let me just say this. So, I'm going to say the top 3 for this season are Southwick, Millville, and the Ironman National in Indiana. Which, the first year they ran the National in Indiana, I was really surprised by that track. I really, really like that track. it would probably be in my top 2, except Southwick and Millville are like classics in my mind. So I'm going to have to say probably... I'm trying to make a rash decision on the spot. I probably could have wrote this out a little bit better and then we could have gone over it. But, so, let's just narrow it down to those top 3. Southwick, Millville, and Ironman. Why do I like Southwick? Because it's Southwick. I mean, who in the American racing scene doesn't like Southwick, right? It's, aside from Glen Helen, it's sandy, which I don't know if... I mean, Glen Helen is sandy, but I don't know if you'd consider it technically a sand track, depending on how hardcore you were talking. But Southwick is like America's Lommel, which I haven't seen a lot of racing at Lommel, but I've always heard on the MXGP circuit that it is just the gnarliest sand track over there. So for that reason, Southwick will always be one of my favorite tracks because it's just brutal and the sand, and there's always been good racing at Southwick. 2011, when Dungy's bike broke and went shooting out from behind the gate, that was good. It was a monsoon of a race. It's just always provided good racing. Like 06? Was it 06? Yeah, 06 when Bubba's bike blew up, going through that long tabletop section, we'll call it. His bike seized up. I've just always liked Southwick, and I've always wanted to ride up at Sandy Corners, which is a sand track here in Iowa, northeast Iowa. I haven't made it up there yet, especially after I got my concussion. That kind of delayed everything. But I always wanted to go up and ride there because, I mean, it reminded me of Southwick, and that's one of the main reasons I think it's cool. And, I mean, we're getting off topic here, but Sandy Corners, as far as I know, is the only sand track in Iowa. Don't quote me on that. I don't know too much about all of the public tracks in Iowa. I have a pretty good grip on most of them, but there may be some that I'm missing, so, don't burn me at the stake, please. All right. We are getting so far off topic, so let's go back to Millville. Millville was another one of those races. I actually haven't been to it, surprisingly, which anyone who is geographically well off, I suppose, with the United States would know that Iowa is the state south of Minnesota, and I have a lot of friends that have actually been up to Millville, and I, for some reason, have not. But Millville, I think Millville was at its heyday in probably the 04 era, like James Stewart on the 125. Like, that's just a classic era in my mind. Like, I'll always go back to that for reference points, just because it was legendary, and they had the longest whoop section, the sand whoops and the whoop monster. That's just classic Millville, and I love Millville basically for that reason, because of those whoops. It's just, it's just a killer section just to watch, and if you can really, like Stewart on the 125s, head and shoulders above everyone else. Like, it wasn't even close. And so for that reason, it made me really like that track. But I know there was the first year that they shortened them. I can't name it off the top of my head. Maybe 08, 09 maybe. Whatever year it was that they shortened them. I might be thinking way too far back. I was like, what are you doing? Like, you pretty much just took away the main thing that Millville has. Not that it's a bad track at all, obviously, but it was just, Millville is going to be humid, and that there's going to be some whoops. So, that would be, I think I'm going to have to eliminate Millville. If you were to ask me growing up, it would definitely be Millville because of the whoops. I've always loved whoops, and I've always been fairly good at them. And I mean, you talk to any racer, A lot of them don't like the whoops, maybe, but a lot of racers do like the whoops. So, let's discuss the Ironman. Like I said, kind of prior to, like just a few minutes ago, the Ironman was, I was surprised by how much I liked that track, especially that the step up and the step down, like you doubled, I think it was a double, but the backside of that double, the landing, was the steep downhill. So you jumped up the hill, made a 180 hairpin, and then you doubled back off down. That was so cool. I was like, holy Lord, when I saw people hit that. But I always thought that was a good section, and I always liked it. So it's really between those two. Aside from that section at Ironman, I always liked. It kind of reminded me of Unadilla in a way, because the way that it looked like, especially if they started getting rain, like how it kind of rutted up, and the edges would be kind of not soupy, but not. I'm thinking of a word that I can't think of. Loamy. Not loamy, but not soupy. Like drier than soup, but wetter than mud, or loam, if that makes sense. And then the racing lines would get really hard packed, and the berms, or the ruts in the berms, seemed like they would pack up pretty tight. So, man, coming into this video, I actually thought I was going to say the Ironman for this season, but I think I'm going to have to go Southwick. I haven't watched Southwick yet. I'm actually going to watch that hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday. Speaking of which, enjoy the 4th of July. Have a good 4th of July. Be safe. We need our fingers, hands, toes, and feet to ride our dirt bikes, so don't blow any off with fireworks, please. Thank you. And if that did happen, I'm sorry for your loss of limb. This is getting morbid. Let's bring it back. All right. So let's talk. There's a track that I want to bring up that I didn't appreciate fully until they took it off the circuit, and it's not on this season. So that would be Binghamton. Broome Tioga. That was, growing up, one of my favorite tracks, and now that they took it off the circuit, I really, really like it. I like going back and watching old races from it. That and Steel City, but Broome Tioga more so. I just always liked the layout, and it was one of those tracks. I like tracks. I like to ride at tracks, and I like to watch tracks that are, like I said before, really loamy, and kind of like Washougal in a way. Like the dirt is just, it's kind of like I've heard people compare it to like cake mix. Like there's enough there for traction, but it's also loose enough. Like anyone who rides, you know what I'm talking about. Like just good loamy, dark soil. And when my wife and I are talking about moving and getting some ground, I want to get black dirt, and hopefully do the same thing for a home track, a private track. And that's the kind of dirt that I like, and it's also kind of why I like Southwick. And I think I don't care for as much like Thunder Valley, because it gets really hard packed, I feel. So those are probably my favorites. But so yeah, for this season we're gonna have to say Southwick, just because Southwick is legendary, and I always like the sand tracks and watching the sand tracks. But overall, looking back, my favorite track I'd have to say Broome Tioga. We will probably revisit this discussion when I get more people on the podcast, just because I like to go over things like this and get other people's points of view, which is a good reason why you should be commenting or leaving a voice chat on Anchor's anchor.fm/MotoConvo if you're watching on YouTube, this video, aka. On Anchor, you can leave a voice message, and that's why I encourage you to do that, so that I can hear your conversation. And once I see conversation, or once I get conversation, I see that it's there and I hear it, then I'd love to bring it up and discuss it more. And then we can go from there and just see where it expands to. But also leave a comment on YouTube so we can bring that up. I totally lost track of where I was going with this. because I jumped off for the little, not promotion, but advertisement of my own, hawking my channel across your earscape. Anyway, so like I said, Southwick for this season, but Ironman is a close second, so I'm really excited for Ironman. I hope it doesn't get really muddy like it did a couple years ago. It's 2018. Like I'm watching. The other day I was watching 2011 footage with RV, Dungey, Reed, and all those guys, and I'm thinking like, oh yeah, a couple years ago. It's like 9 years ago, dude. So yeah, I hope that Ironman doesn't get muddy again like it did, but it's Indiana in the Midwest, so we get rain and snow and very hot heat and all that stuff. But I'm gonna have to say that Broome Tioga is probably my favorite all-around track. There's just so many moments. Like I could, if you asked me to visualize that track right now, I could, just from watching TV, I've never been there, I could sit at the start gate and take you through like the first right-hander and how it went over the little finish line tabletop into a lefty, and you went up the hill over around this like right-handed sweeper into another hairpin to go downhill, and then you turn left to go into the small rhythm section. It's like a whoop section. It's like a big whoop, small rhythm section kind of thing. And then as you got further back, like those three tabletops, one of them might have been a double, going down the hill, three big jumps, then a fourth one coming around, and then you went around the bend and the large triple step down. Like that was just always an awesome track for me to watch. And it had a good mix of like flatter stuff, but a lot of hilly, is that a word? A lot of hill-based track direction. Oh, sure. So I think I'm looking at the list right now thinking, is there any other kind of sleepers that I'm not mentioning? Redbud was always a good track, obviously. Not a huge fan of Redbud. I mean, to say I'm not a huge fan of something is not a slight at all, because I'm not a huge fan of Glen Helen, but I still really love the track. It's just that I love Southwick so much. Comparably, Southwick would be a 10 on a 0 to 10 ratio. That's the right word. Sure. So Southwick would be a 10, and Thunder Valley would be like 4. So maybe a 5, maybe a 6. The point is that it's not like I hate any of these tracks. There's just some I really like and some I just like. So let's do that real quick, since we're just freaking winging this, freaking free one pug life. Let's go through these 12 rounds and we'll rate them on a 1 to 10. I wish I had a piece of paper. A 1 to 10 ratio. Got a paper here. Hold on, give me a minute. All right, give me a pen. Going on 19 minutes here. All right, so on a 1 to 10, God, I can't think of the word. 1 to 10, we'll just ratio, whatever. Hangtown. Hangtown's gonna be like a. Hangtown's lower on my list also. Probably like a. We can't go lower than a 5 just because, I mean, I like all these tracks. So let's make Hangtown a. Running through the track in my mind right now. Let's make it a 6. Hangtown isn't one of my favorites, but it's another track I feel gets a lot like Thunder Valley. And there's a lot of hype around Hangtown also because it's the first race of the season. And for that reason, I also don't like it because I don't think the track really... I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of hype, and then like people get better as the season goes on, and racing gets better as the season goes on because of it. And so I've never really been a big fan of Hangtown. Glen Helen, I'm going to have to... Glen Helen's an 8 for sure. Like I said, it's not my favorite track. Actually, the more I watch of it, the more I do like it, especially the new layout like I talked about in that podcast episode. Reviewing Glen Helen. Thunder Valley is a 5. Like I said, nothing against Colorado or the track or the promoters or anything like that. I can only wish that I will someday ride a Thunder Valley. But High Point. High Point and Unadilla are very similar, I feel, but High Point's gonna be an 8. No, High Point's gonna be an 8.5. I wasn't gonna do half scores, but I don't want to give it a full 9, so we'll give it a 8.5. Tennessee, I'm gonna be completely honest and say that if you're watching the YouTube page right now, you will know that I'm looking up the Tennessee race, because I do not remember that track a whole lot. Actually, I take that back. I might remember it now that I'm looking at it. Muddy Creek. We're coming up on Redbud, aren't we? I'm usually pretty good at spelling, but apparently not for trying to type in Tennessee. So let's pull up the 250 Moto 1. I have to mute it just in case there's any copyright stuff. If you can hear that, the people who mow our apartment are mowing it, so if that's interrupting the video or the audio, I apologize. I haven't watched Tennessee, that's why I don't remember it. But Tennessee appears to me to be a lot like oh no, I remember Tennessee now. Okay, they just went over the finish line, and it took me a little bit to remember what Tennessee looked like. I like Tennessee. We're gonna give that one a 9. There's nothing in particular I really like I can pick out that I love about Tennessee, but I just really like how the track flows. It appears to be, oh no, it appears to be a fast track, and I left. Oh, okay, let's zoom through this list because there's another one I gotta bring up. This is gonna be a long episode. Sorry, folks, but all right. So that one's getting an 8.5. No, we're giving that a 9. I better write that down. I'm like we're gonna go over it again, but that's a 9. Southwick, that's a 10. My favorite. We'll just write my fave. Redbud, we're gonna give an 8. Spring Creek, aka Millville, we're gonna give a 9. 9.5. We're gonna give 9.5. Washougal. Washougal is one of those tracks also that is kind of like a. I always like it, but I'm not a huge fan of it. So we're gonna give it an 8 also. Yep, we're gonna give it an 8 also. Unadilla, I actually really do like Unadilla. I don't like how the track kind of develops and breaks in. It looks, I mean, I know motocross is a rough sport, but I'm kind of pampered in the way that like I like good looking tracks. Like I like, smooth, clean berms. I mean, when it ruts up, it's harder, it's more physically demanding, and it still makes for good racing. But like I mentioned now 15 minutes ago, probably 10 minutes ago, was that it looks like it gets hard packed in some areas, plus the gravity cavity is a staple in motocross. Ever since I was growing up, I was like, oh, the gravity cavity. So Unadilla is going to get, let's give it an 8.5 also. Budds Creek is a pretty old stop. I couldn't tell you how many years they've been going to Budds Creek, but it's another legendary track that I'm not a huge fan of, but I do like it. So we'll give it an 8. And then the Ironman, we're going to give a 9, right up behind the Millville's 9.5. Now, fast tracks, because this one completely slipped my mind, is Paula. When they went to Paula Raceway in 2011, that track was so fast and that racing was so good. I was watching the motos again just yesterday and the day before. Moto 1 and 2 of the 450s where RV and Dungey were going for the title. Oh, that was good racing, especially Moto 1. Seeing them go through those long section of rollers onto that little like step up, step down, triple jump thing. Paula was another one that's going to be right up there with the rest. I want to go to California, obviously, and ride Paula. And I hope they keep holding the RVMX Cup out there because I would love to go to that. But, man, just keeps getting tougher mentioning cool tracks and stuff. So I'm just going to pick a top 3. For this season, Southwick, overall Broome Tioga, and Paula Raceway in 2011. Those are my top 3 overall. Broome Tioga being my favorite, period. And then Paula and Southwick are very close to each other. Then obviously Millville and Ironman, they all go down from there. So my recorder battery is about to die. It's flashing, and it keeps saying low battery. Why don't you just record, and then I'll handle the battery issue. You just record. Man, this is just hell of an episode. So guys, if you could bear with me through this whole 28 minute episode, then you can make it through just about anything else with me. So feel free to subscribe on YouTube and applause this episode on Anchor.fm. The Anchor app, I really like the Anchor app. This podcast isn't sponsored by anyone. I mean, hopefully someday I would like to get sponsored by someone, and hopefully that can transition over into my dirt bike. But I always liked Anchor, and that's why I started setting up the podcast on Anchor, because there was already podcast areas, plus they distribute to everyone. So if you're on YouTube, like this video, subscribe, and please comment and get into this discussion. And same on Anchor. Favorite us and applause it, and leave a voice message to get back to me. Shout out to Ken Block, wearing my Hoonigan hat today because I've been wearing my Kawasaki hat for a long time, and I need to get more hats because I like hats, but I want to get some more hats. More hats and more podcasts. That's the plan. So thank you guys for listening and hanging in there with me. This was a train wreck of an episode, I feel. But what do you do? So tell me what your favorite track is. Whoa. I'm gonna end this before it gets any more crazy. Tell me what your favorite track is, and I will talk to you guys all later. Have a good 4th of July, and remember to stay safe and send it. All right, I'm done. I'm seriously done. Bye. Good God. That was a disaster. I think I need an Advil.